You see, something's going to happen.
What? What's going to happen?
Something wonderful.
What?
I understand how you feel. You see, it's all very clear to me now.
Welcome to the Occult Rejects. This episode, we got a very, very special guest, somebody that I've been waiting to get on this show for a long time. We got the Queen of Chaos Magick herself. We got Ivy. And before we get to her, we are going to introduce the other rejects that we got on the show today. And we're going to start it off with Euros. So what is going on, Euros? How are you?
Hey, Nick. Thanks for having me on. Yep, I'm ArrowsUp. You can find me on YouTube at ArrowsUp, and you can find me on Twitter at ArrowsToEthos. I am a Hellenistic archetypal and functional astrologer, and I do a lot of deep dives into metaphysics.
Yes, and if you're into Plotinus and the Enneads, go check out her stuff and check out the other shows she has done on here. Real great work, Eros. Thank you.
Thanks, Nick.
Of course. And we got my man Jin the Ninja. What is going on, Frada?
What is going on, boss? Mr. 93. Okay, so I'm Jin the Ninja. I've retired the Ninja for a little bit, but you can see I'm Jin, so you can follow me on Twitter at Wukong Reborn, WUKONG Reborn. You can check out my show at Threshold Saints on IG and as well as X Twitter. And you can check out The Grey Lodge at thetruegraylodge.com, the TRVE Greylodge.com, as well as our YouTube. Like and subscribe. You can check us out. We're all caught up. So all of our X recordings are now uploaded on YouTube. So you can hear our hundreds of hours of speculative Kabbalah, speculative Gnosticism, and speculative Aeonic work, basically. So thank you guys so much. I'm really excited. Nick knows that I started out as a little bit of a chaos magician myself, so this is exactly like the person that I want to speak to. So thank you so much, Ivy, and thank you to the crew.
Of course, thank you for making it, Jen, of course. And we got my man, Ethan Indigo. What is going on, sir? How are you?
Peace. Thanks so much for putting this together, Nick, and everyone. Glad to be with you, as always. Ethan Indigo Smith, easy to find on all the social media, and I got a few books out there, even on Amazon, again, easy to find, and frequently writing articles and so forth, and really appreciate you being here, Ivy.
Thank you for making it, Ethan. I know you had stuff going on, and you made it happen anyway. Appreciate it, sir. And last but not least, before we get to Ivy, we got the Headless Giant himself. What is going on, sir? How are you?
How you doing? You can find me on X and on YouTube at the Headless Giant, and I have a show with Ethan that we just got done wrapping up here a little while ago called the Trialogues, and also with Ricardo. And on Mondays, we've got an Alchemy Monday coming up where we're going to break out the Soxhlet and actually go through how it works and make a little video about that. And I've also got a show where you can send me your occult/paranormal experiences at the Headless Giant podcast at gmail.com, and me and Nick read those out on Thursday nights. So if you send us your address, we will send you some stickers. So send those stories in to us, Headless Giant podcast at gmail.com. Thank you.
Yeah, definitely. If you have any stories, please don't forget to put in your information. I will send out stickers. And just a reminder, too, on top of Hellas's busy podcasting schedule, by the middle of November, hopefully, I think we decided on a Tuesday, or whatever day it is, we should, and this will probably keep me busy for the next 3 to 5 years podcasting. We're going to be going through Aleister Crowley's 777. So keep an eye out for that. That should be fun and interesting. Now, finally to the guest after, I don't know, 5 minutes, 4 minutes already. Ivy, before I introduce you, I do want to, fanboy you a little bit. This is somebody I look up to in the occult community, and I do think she has a lot of good stuff out there for people. And one thing I do want to highly stress is I might screw up the name because it's been a minute, but I think it was the 8 Lessons for a Beginning Ceremonial Magician. If people are really interested into that stuff or getting into it or want to know what's entailed in it, I have listened to other people's stuff, even David Shoemaker, another person who I think has great, advice for a beginner. That video she put out, I think, is fucking amazing. Because she does even tie in science into this stuff. And that is one of the reasons why I even wanted her on the show. is because she does look at the occult in different ways, in some ways the way I do. You know, a little bit of academic, a little bit of science, and just for me, the way she words it and the way she does that episode, I highly suggest to check that out if you're interested in this stuff. I don't think anybody could have said it any better. So finally, after I'm done blah, 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 and about Ivy, Ivy, please let everybody know who you are, what your deal is, and where people can find your stuff.
Sure. Well, thank you all for having me on the podcast. I'm really excited because I've been listening to quite a few of your episodes, and I think you have such a unique structure with all the different things that you're doing. And Nick, thank you so much for that introduction. I hope I live up to that hype, but no, I like to tell people I'm just a girl on the internet. So Queen of Chaos, no, there are so many other amazing chaots out there that are doing some fantastic stuff. I'm just really passionate about chaos magic, and I talk about it a lot. So I think people are like, oh, that's the chaos girl. Let's talk to her about chaos magic. So anyways, I'm Ivy. You might know me as Ivy the Occultist on YouTube and on Instagram. And I recently just wrote a book. Actually, I've been published twice now. The first book was actually with Peter Carroll, which is considered, one of the founders of chaos magic. So I wrote an essay with him and a couple other chaos magicians in a chaos magic anthology, kind of showcasing where chaos magic is today. Awesome. So that just came out this last July, which was super exciting to be able to work with Peter Carroll. Oh man, I fangirled so hard. It was really, really cool. I loved it. And then my first solo book is coming out this next February. It's called Chaos Magic, A Complete Beginner's Guide. And it really is, a guide for the absolute complete beginner. I have found that a lot of the chaos magic books that are written already kind of assume that you have at least some sort of occult knowledge. And they were, if we think of like Libernal and Psychonaut and even Condensed Chaos, those ones were written by people that would assume that maybe you're coming out of a ceremonial magic scene, or you at least have some understanding of magic and the occult. But there isn't really anything that fits the gap for an absolute beginner coming into the occult for the very first time and needing to know their ABCs. So that's kind of what my book is about. It's structured with theory and praxis, so you get a little bit of both. But yeah, I just make random videos on the internet, and some people like it, some people hate it, and it is what it is because there's trolls, and that's fine. But that's me, I guess. Oh, and I'm a science person, so for my day job, I'm a little bit of a lab rat. So yeah, as Nick said, I do try to incorporate academia and some scientific perspectives by way of psychology in my ritual magic. So I think that covers everything. I don't know. We're going to go through it all. So that's my little spiel.
I think that was great. I think you summed it up great so far.
Cool.
Did anybody have anything to ask or say before I start to continue going on? No.
I have a quick question. So, Ivy, one of my co-hosts from the Grey Lodge, Solar Exile, shout him out, who has been on the show, he and I were discussing about how a lot of chaos magic is very popular among a lot of contemporary left-hand path practitioners, because it is kind of a breaking away of the ceremonial confines, you could say, which of course they kind of love. So do you have any thoughts on this, or like sort of more chaotic perspectives on why so many people in like the American modern occult scene have sort of, I'm not saying ceremonial magic is bad in any way, I'm just saying that a lot of them have left and sort of embraced some of these more chaos magic principles. John Webb, of course, number one, maybe. But I don't think he's the only one. I think that, like Toby Chappell's talking about this. A lot of them are, who's also been on the shows.
Yeah, I'm not a left-hand practitioner myself, but I do have friends that are both chaos magicians and left-hand practitioners. And I think if we think about the definitions of like the right-hand path versus the left-hand path, I know this is a whole philosophical discussion that we could have forever, but there usually is like the right-hand path, there is this level of institutionalized dogma. And with the left-hand path, there usually is not. At least, the friends that I speak to, there seems to be this rejection of dogma. And that really kind of coincides with one of the core axioms of chaos magic theory, which is the avoidance of dogmatism, and really kind of paving your own way, right? It's all about individuality, creativity, freedom, doing what works and discarding what doesn't. And there's a certain rebellious nature to chaos magic. So I could see how left-hand path practitioners who really are aligned with that rebellious spirit would kind of fall in line with chaos magic principles. Whereas, you know, a right-hand path practitioner is going to be more focused on the institution, the community, the righteous path. Maybe asceticism is incorporated into the things that they're doing. And that's very opposite to what chaos magic preaches, because it's pragmatic. You discard what works and you discard what doesn't work, and then you keep what does. So yeah, I mean, I know a lot of chaos magicians that are not interested at all in the left-hand path though too. So I think it's just like a mixed bag, but I guess that's what I would say. I don't know. What do you think about that?
I mean, for me, everything that you said, pragmatism, number one, being able to flexibility in your frameworks, this is all very tantric ideas. Like I consider myself a middle path practitioner myself, so I'm neither on extreme of like asceticism or left-hand path, but I definitely will draw from both and draw from like both institutional and sort of like independent ideas from both of those things. But I'm pretty traditional myself, but everything you're saying is in accordance with Tantra. So for me, I agree 100%, I guess. It's just like, I think people have sort of lost the, okay, so I'll be really honest. I think a lot of the institutional frames have sort of lost the magic, or at least in people's imaginary. And so they don't necessarily contain like the ritual formulations. Like Nick talks about this with the OTO. Like, yeah, you can walk through the Gnostic Mass and yeah, maybe get like a little spark here and there and, you know, illuminate something. But as soon as the Mass is done, it's done. It's like, you know, you might get that little spark, but you're not like, if you want to use Kabbalistic language, you're not going to death or anything. So I think that people sort of recognize that there's a kind of emptiness in the ritual. And I'm not using emptiness in the Buddhist way, but maybe emptiness in the more functional way where it's like, you're not really gaining that much. So I think people are more interested in these processes, I would call them, of consciousness and sort of how to make magic work in these pragmatic confines of our minds as well as our everyday material lives.
I would agree with that. I think there's a level of being an adversary too, going back to the rebellious spirit, because a left-hand path practitioner is going to be working potentially with adversaries, you know, those types of spirits, or maybe they are the adversary. They see themselves that way. And with chaos magicians, I think there's a similar energy there because it kind of looks at ceremonial magic and scoffs a little bit and says, we don't need these long, arduous ceremonies. That's all bullshit. We can just cut all of this out and get to the meat and potatoes of what actually works. So yeah, no, definitely makes sense to what you said.
I just want to say that I call myself true neutral, but I am a bit of a trickster. Like I definitely have that element, but I'm not like evil for evil's sake. So let me just say that to continue.
No, I can resonate with you on that trickster spirit here too. I'm not like evil, but I like to fuck shit up. So, can I swear? I should have probably checked.
You're good.
Okay, sorry, I didn't know if I could or not. So, okay, good.
You're good. There is like a few questions I want to ask you. I do want to kind of, I guess at some point get like what brought you even into the occult. But if you can, for the listeners, because my podcast is very like, there's people who are into the stuff and people who really don't know anything about it. Could you give the listeners an idea of what your idea of chaos magic is?
Sure. Well, that's a loaded question, first of all, and my definition changes every single day. So it really depends.
That's good, though, I think. In my opinion, I've said if you're a magician and your ideas of things keep staying the same, something the fuck's wrong.
Yes, definitely. I mean, even after writing a book, I still go back and read what I wrote, and then one day I'll disagree with what I said.
I could change
so it's just so tough. But I did say in the introduction of my book that 10 years from now, I could disagree with everything that I've written in this book, and that is chaos magic. Okay, so at least I've covered my bases there, and we're all good. But no, chaos magic is a postmodern magical practice, and kind of a philosophy and a perspective on how magic works. So a lot of people will initially think of chaos magic and see sigils, hypersigils, magical entities, all of these things that are so chaos magic. But I would actually argue that those things are not intrinsically chaos magic. Yes, a lot of chaos magicians will do sigils and hypersigils and work with servitors and such. But anybody from any occult practice can really utilize those techniques. What really identifies a chaos magician is someone who prescribes to chaos magic theory. And chaos magic theory kind of combines a bunch of different things. So one of the core axioms And when I say this, I say it very loosely because there's really no rules and no limitations to a chaos magic practice. And it really does reject dogma. So there is kind of a conundrum in itself because as we try to define chaos magic doesn't like to be defined and it doesn't prescribe to dogma. So there is a little bit of an issue in even defining it in the first place. But one of the core axioms is using your belief as a tool to manifest the things that you want and to manipulate your reality. So whether something is objectively real or not is completely irrelevant. If you can use it in your occult practice to make change in your life, then that works. And that's what we're going to do as chaos magicians. An example that I always like to give is with gods, for example. I am dedicated to Thoth. I know that some people pronounce it Toth, Thoth. You know, there's a million different pronunciations, but yeah, exactly. And there's really no right or wrong way, but Thoth is what feels best to my mouth when I'm chanting it in ritual.
Oh, same here, yeah.
Yeah. So I just say Thoth. But so in working with this deity, is this god objectively real? Is it an actual Egyptian god that exists in some upper or lower world or another realm? Or is it perhaps an egregore, just a thought form that we have fed all of our beliefs and ideas into being real? Or is it nothing at all? Is it a psychological archetype? Who cares? Because at the end of the day, Chaos Magician really prescribes to it's your belief in that thing that matters, not necessarily whether that God is real or not. So it doesn't matter if Thoth is real or not. If I'm dedicated to Thoth and I'm doing ritual with Thoth and I'm seeing results manifest in my material reality, that is what matters. So it's very pragmatic. We discard what doesn't work and we keep what does. And then there's other aspects of chaos magic theory as well. There's gnosis, we're working with Gnostic states, deconditioning the mind. Again, the avoidance of dogmatism, because there is this idea that dogmatism it imposes rigidity on the mind and it prevents you from tapping into your creativity and your individual freedom. So again, going back to that rebellious spirit and kind of rejecting institutional dogma that we were talking about. But yeah, does that answer the question? I mean, I feel like I could go on and on about what chaos magic is, but that's my brief, I guess.
Yeah, I like that. It's interesting how you said something were about not being for me, I used chaos magic at one point, but I was never a chaos magician. I would never have said that. I was a ceremonial magician who it's funny how the way you just explained things, I was a mix of both. How I was very much a ceremonial magician who still liked kind of the rigid rules and incorporated the ideas of how chaos magic sigils and all that stuff was made. I just incorporated that into my ceremony. Instead of me using planetary squares, now I'm just designing them myself from taking the letters out of the phrases. Or I might be meditating now on the sigil and stuff like that during my ritual. But I find it interesting how you really did kind of you really split it up really well, I think, with those two, because I see how I was a combination of both, And I find it interesting how I think Gordon White even said it on the show how with chaos magic it was something that kind of came through and just went, but I kind of stayed with it. It was almost out of me being bored technically with what I was doing ceremonial wise. I was let me check out this chaos magic stuff. And I was oh, this is kind of fun. Less rules. I can get artistic with my sigil now. I don't need a Mars fucking square for this. You know what I'm saying? So, and then it was just I kind of had its big thing. And I guess I kind of put it to the side, but I always kind of kept that though, the sigil work and stuff. I always incorporated that, even on my candles. If I was, I would incorporate some sort of chaos, I guess, technically, the way that those sigils are done. It's not with the, gematria, the Hebrew gematria. I would put that on there. So, it was something that stayed with me. But, I'm going on too long now. But one thing I do want to ask, and this is kind of jumping ahead, but it was something that you said made me think of this just now. I can't remember what it was. But when it comes to chaos magic and the sigils and stuff, do you think it's ever possible you might be a little bit we might be doing something a little bit like Giordano Bruno was trying to do with the art of memory? Where we might actually be imprinting things onto ourselves or actually sparking stuff inside our brain. That shape, believe it or not, might actually do something regardless. Even though we're oh, I just made that. Well, it still actually means something inside your head. Do you think that's possible that you might actually be it almost might be, this is the worst way to say it, but almost self-MK Ultra, where you're actually trying to reprogram or open up things in your own mind?
I do, to a limit. Let me elaborate.
Okay, go for it.
I do have strong opinions on this now. So Austin Osman Spare is the one that really kind of developed the style of sigilization that you're talking about, where you are creating this artistic form from an intention phrase, right? Like you take an intention phrase, you reduce it down, you either use the letter method or you can use a wheel, you can just whatever, create an image artistically from that intention phrase. And then you enter an altered state of consciousness and sort of charge and activate that sigil in that altered state, or with chaos magicians, it's called a Gnostic state, where you are focusing intently on this one intention. And then you're implanting that image into your subconscious mind. That way, after you destroy the sigil, it can manifest as you go about your day subconsciously. You don't have to be consciously thinking about the intention anymore. It's all a subconscious process. So yeah, I do think that in that, specifically with the Austin Osman Spare's sigilization methods, I do think that we are implanting things into our psyche, but I don't think that they stick. I've found working a lot with sigils that they kind of like dissipate really quickly. And so I find that working with servitors or other types of magical entities really create more potent, long-lasting brain changes. Whereas a sigil,
yeah.
What's that?
That makes sense. Well, unless you think if you're not going to feed the thing, you have to keep going back to it, so it's constantly reminder.
Exactly. It's really great for quick magic. I like to think of the elements here. You know, we have like fire, earth, air, water, and fire is always associated to really quick magic, but it does taper off very quickly as well. It doesn't have that strong grounding foundation that the earth element does. So I kind of think of sigils like that, where it's very quick acting and good for smaller intentions. And I do think it can kind of help reprogram the subconscious, but to an extent, obviously. And then that magic kind of fades out a little bit. So yes and no. I guess has been my personal experience, but you know, I don't know. I think there are some freak incidents too, where people have worked with sigils and they've been able to accomplish incredible things. And I think that's just apparent in occult practices of all kinds, where you have that 1% of a miracle potentially happening, or some, you know, crazy odds. But I would just say overall, sigils are good for quick magic, not good for a whole brain rewiring.
I like it.
Well, I had something I wanted to throw in there. I see chaos magic as kind of a return to the primordial, because what we see is Kek, you know, right? This frog deity of chaos returning in the Donald Trump presidency of all things. We see the eight-pointed star as the star of Ishtar, goddess of love and war. Pretty chaotic, you know. And then we have all these references to the ancient sea of chaos, and it's sort of like all of this stuff is bubbling up, and we see this sort of changing of the eons in this sort of milieu of chaotic reality kind of all around us. It's almost like the fertile ground for, you know, a reimagining of what order and chaos really is.
No, that's exactly right. Chaos magic really is a return to the primordial. It's about working with the idea of primordial chaos, where there is no set form yet. And so because there is no set form, we can create whatever kind of reality we want based on our belief and our will as magicians. So no, to your point, I completely agree with that.
Nice. That was well said. I like that. Anybody else have questions? Sierra,
I do.
Go ahead.
This might be a stupid question, but I'm going to ask it anyway. Plotinus has this idea of like the one kind of overflowing and experiencing itself through experiencing multiplicity through a scheme of differentiation. And that always made me think of chaos, kind of like some of those images of chaos where you have like those two circles kind of coming out of each other. And like that idea that from the one, there's like the two and the three, and that they are all from the one, but they are different, and like everything is different. I guess I wonder, do you think that chaos magic kind of works in a scheme of differentiation, or right? Because you're also talking about how gnosis is kind of involved, like it's like these new states, these new things, novelty.
I don't think that's a stupid question at all. I think that's a great question, actually. And I'm not a philosophy expert. I'm a very practical occultist. So I don't read books unless I absolutely have to. That sounds absolutely terrible because I know that I said that I bring in academia, and then here I am like, I don't give a shit about philosophy and history. No, just kidding. I'm just kidding when I say that. But yeah, so I think to answer your question, that's really difficult because every chaos magician is going to practice chaos magic differently, and they're going to have a different view on how chaos magic works. And because it innately rejects any sort of dogma, I would say that maybe some chaos magicians might practice from that perspective, but perhaps not all, because to define that is to add structure to the chaos magic philosophy, which innately rejects structure. So I hope that answers your question, but I'm sure some chaos would definitely perceive it that way, though.
Thank you. Anybody have a question before I ask the next one? Don't want to keep you guys.
Go ahead, Nick.
All right, yeah. Before you mentioned servitor, and that is something that I have experience in using in the past. Just for the listeners who don't know what that is, and I hate to put you on the spot, Ivy, but could you maybe explain what is a servitor to you?
Yeah, sure. So a servitor is a magical entity or a thought form or some sort of construct that has been created from the magician. And there's many different perceptions as to what a servitor is. Some people think that it's almost like you're putting a job posting up on a cosmic bulletin board and then a servitor type entity is coming in to fill that. I don't agree.
It's a help wanted ad.
I mean, if people want to believe that, that's fine. That's not how I perceive it.
I've never heard that. That's funny.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
No, for me, it's very much a mental thought form. So you are taking this intention phrase, and with a sigil, you would normally take the intention phrase, reduce it down, create an image, and then implant that onto your subconscious mind. But with a servitor, you're actually creating this entity, this being, and breathing life into that entity. And there is a maintenance to it. There is, you're feeding that servitor. You're interacting with it on a regular basis. So it's almost like, to me, I would describe it the next level up from a sigil, because you do use sigils in the process, but you're actually creating an entity from it that you are then interacting with so that it can take on larger tasks. Because as I mentioned beforehand, sigils are really, great for quick magic, but not really, they don't sustain for very long. So servitors are excellent for really, really big workings, something that you want to work on over a longer period of time. And that's just my perception. I know that everybody looks at magical entities differently, but that is kind of how actually, you know what? I do want to add a distinction, because if we get into magical entities, I do have a chapter on magical entities, and I talk about servitors versus tulpas versus egregores. And I do want to make a distinction that a servitor is kind of like I hate to say it this way, but a mindless servant, a mindless robot that does not experience emotions. It does not have autonomy. Although I will say with my own servitors, the line gets a little bit blurred, because with tulpas, they do experience emotion. They do have autonomy, and they can actually create a full possession of the body. And so I have had lines blurred where a servitor starts to turn into a tulpa. But for the most part, just to kind of get our definitions straight, I would say that a servitor is more mindless, no autonomy, no emotion, and it just kind of helps execute tasks for you.
Yeah,
How do you tell the difference?
This is the argument. No, just kidding. This is an argument amongst chaos magicians who work with magical entities. So tulpas, in my experience, and what I've seen from others, really are more akin to like an imaginary friend. It is this entity, and actually the whole tulpamancy community, I don't want to fully wrap this under the chaos magic umbrella, because it is almost separate yet parallel to the occult world. A lot of people that are really, really into psychology will actually get into tulpamancy and not even have it be part of any sort of occult workings whatsoever. But some occultists will kind of incorporate that in. So whereas servitors, that word is usually only seen in reference to some sort of occult practice. But yeah, tulpas are more like an imaginary friend. And in my experience, they're so difficult to create and it takes months and months, if not years, to create this entity inside your mind that can kind of share the brain space with you. And there's a lot that goes into it. There's like parallel processing that happens with tulpas. I'm not an expert, so I actually don't talk about tulpas too much in my book. I kind of just refer people to other tulpamancers that I think are great to learn from. So don't ask me too many questions about tulpas, of course, because I'm not too much of an expert. But yeah, servitors is more my jam and where my expertise lies. And they're much simpler creations, much easier to manage. They don't normally speak in your head like a tulpa does. So yeah.
I know for myself, when I used the servitor, like I'm not asking you to tell me what it was, but like well, I guess whatever dealt with yours, did you actually like, have like a description in your head or on paper, like you actually constructed what it looked like and gave it a name? Yeah, I did all that, and then I would, I think a few times a week I would like feed it and actually like retell it, like this is what you're supposed to do. Yeah. So it is definitely. I think as a ceremonial magician too, I'll just be honest, it gave me a reason to do rituals. I was like, oh, this is a reason to do the lesser banishing ritual and to invoke something and feed it. I don't know. So, but yeah, it's interesting. It's funny to hear you say like, certain things. It just reminds me like, yeah, I remember when I was doing that, we'd actually feed the thing. And yeah. Now, when you mentioned, it's funny, I don't have much experience with tulpas, and I think it's probably because I was messing with chaos magic. It was more of like kind of like sigils, then it was servitors, and then if you really want to take it up, you go to egregores. You know what I'm saying? And I heard you mention, you don't know much about tulpas, but servitors and egregores, and that makes sense because I feel like that is kind of just like, stepping it up in chaos magic. What would you, I hate, again, to put you on the spot, for egregores, how would you explain those? The people that
Sure. No, put me on the spot. That's why I'm here. I love this conversation. So yeah, an egregore is kind of like a servitor on steroids. So where a servitor is created by the mind of one magician for a very specific intention, an egregore is created by the hive mind. It's by a group of people. And this can either be consciously or unconsciously. So this gets into a really interesting discussion about people unconsciously creating egregores and even discussing, let's say, the Christian God, for example, going back to objectivity versus subjectivity. Is the Christian God actually real, some God sitting up in the clouds in heaven above, or is it just an egregore? Is it this entity that has been created over thousands of years of people feeding their ideas, their thoughts, their belief, their love into this thing potentially being real? So an egregore really is just like a servitor, but created by potentially thousands of people. And even covens. I mean, I ran covens for 4 years, and I won't share what we did, of course, too specifically, because I'm not allowed to share those types of things, but we would even create egregores. And so you would, during ritual, push your energy. I'm trying to, how do I say this without giving too much away? Push your energy and intention towards a specific goal, and everybody in the group would be focusing on the same thing. And you would give this thing life, shape. You would give it a logo or a sigil. You would give it characteristics and such. And so you are just a mass group of people creating this thing. But I really like the idea of egregores because it really does beg the question with gods, whether they're real or not, or whether they're just egregores. And I also think that companies and institutions, and I think a lot of people in corporate America unconsciously work with egregores through their branding and having their fans, and even through media, influencing people and manipulating people like that to feed their energy and attention into their mascots. If we think of like Kellogg's or something, and we think of like the mascot of all these brands and such, every time that mascot flashes up on the screen, are we not kind of giving it our attention and feeding it a little bit? Does that not kind of become an egregore, this thought form that all of us are either we love it or we hate it, but we're all feeding energy into? So I love the concept of egregores. I think it's super interesting. And to either consciously or unconsciously create them, I think is really interesting.
Thank you. It was a good way to put it. One question I do have, I'm wondering, do you think it's possible, I guess this gets a little bit more conspiratorial, but do you think it's possible that like the public can be made to create an egregore and not even realize they're doing it?
Oh, 100%. I mean,
All right.
okay, this is coming from me being a conspiracy theorist and not trusting anyone or anything ever. Yeah. Oh my gosh. Yeah. I mean, I was in school for psychology before I switched my degree to molecular biosciences. I was getting my degree in psychology, and I got to year 3 and then ended up dropping out because I decided I didn't want to be a psychologist because of all of the politics and the bullshit, and I didn't want to do it. Anyways, so I had to take a lot of sociology classes and psychology of, communities and such. And it's really interesting, all the manipulation tactics that become so apparent and so clear once you know how to spot them, like once you see a cover up or something, it's wild watching politicians, watching even medical companies. I mean, all of them are so corrupt. And I'm just sitting here like, wow, they don't even realize that they're doing occult hidden shit right now, but they absolutely are. So yeah, definitely.
Cool. Did anybody have any questions?
I got one.
Go for it.
Me and Nick follow a lot of strange animals on Instagram. And what they're starting to do is they have these foot pads that they go around and they touch the button and they, speak to their owners with these sounds that come out of the buttons. And this one cat I've been following loves the movie Pocahontas. Like, that's her favorite movie. And so this meme has spread from the human world to the cat world, and the cat now believes that Pocahontas is real. And so it's always pushing the button, I want to see Pocahontas. So for Halloween, Pocahontas, a person dressed up like Pocahontas, actually came and visited this cat. And so this cat was having an interaction with a meme that was made in this cartoon that now it believes the character of Pocahontas is coming to visit it. And so it was really excited, and it was saying, when can Pocahontas come back? It's pushing all the buttons. It's going crazy. Meme magic has spread from humans into animals. What are your thoughts on that?
Okay, so I know exactly what you're talking about, like not that specific cat, but I've definitely seen the videos where a dog will press the buttons, and it has they're like speaking certain words and they're training their dog that way. I don't know if I have any thoughts other than that's crazy. Like, I don't know. That's just really crazy to me. Yeah, I mean, to be able to, we're actually reading in my book club right now. You guys had on Richard Kaczynski recently to talk about his mind over magic, and we're reading that in my book club right now. And he's talking about programming, and we're just in the first 6 chapters is what we've covered, but he talks about programming and conditioning and things like that. And it's really interesting. I could go on a whole rant about like the reality threshold and our cognitive filters and such, but I definitely think that animals, they may have a lesser version of that, but they still have that where we can kind of manipulate them, and that's really sad. But yeah, that's crazy. I guess those are all my thoughts.
I guess I had a question. So you got to work with Peter Carroll, which is so cool. And I was wondering, there's the Peter Carroll kind of chaos magician, and then like maybe Discordianism type of chaos magician, and like the Discordianism, they get real weird with it. Like their apocryphas and stuff are just really strange and obscure. And I was wondering, like, could you talk a little bit on the differences between maybe those schools of thought?
Oh, geez. So this is going to be tough for me to answer because I don't identify with either because the way I practice chaos magic is different from both of them. So yeah, I mean, so I kind of take my own approach, and here's the problem, not necessarily a problem, just an observation with the chaos magic community, because it's not a formal institution. Like if you think of like the Hermetic Order of the Golden Dawn, okay, it has all these rules and regulations, and every lodge of the Golden Dawn operates similarly. Like they might be a little bit different in theory, but for the most part, they kind of have a similar framework. Whereas chaos magic, it rejects that institutionalized dogma. So we don't have an official logo. We don't have an official set rules. We don't have official leaders in the community even. I mean, Peter Carroll is seen as one of the founders of chaos magic, but he has his own flavor of practicing chaos magic that doesn't resonate with all of us. So I think it's hard to classify chaos magicians because there's so many I have never met two chaos magicians that are the same at all. And so I think that the Discordianism approach and the Peter Carroll approach are probably the two most well known, but I would actually say there's so many other flavors of chaos magic than that. Discordianism, I have never really been truly called down that path, so I actually have no idea. But Peter Carroll, I've definitely read all of his books. He takes a lot more of a scientific approach to chaos magic. He kind of has his own method in theory. Based on, oh gosh, I'm going to absolutely butcher this if he ever watches this, which I don't think he will, but he doesn't watch stuff like this. But you know, his approach is very much centered around physics because that's his area of expertise. And he kind of leans, or I don't know if this is true current day, but in his previous works, he leans more towards the atheistic approach, which I actually disagree with. And disagreements are something that's really important in the chaos magic community. We should be able to disagree with each other and challenge each other's beliefs and such. So I actually personally feel like atheism is also a form of dogma. So I know that atheism rejects Christianity and, you know, organized religion and stuff, but atheism itself is its own form of dogma, which I think is the antithesis of really what chaos magic is trying to say. Now, again, this chaos magic changes over the years. So what chaos magic was in the 1970s when Peter Carroll was writing about it is like going to be a lot different than what we're talking about in 2025. So yeah, I would say his approach is a lot more scientific, a lot more atheist. Discordianism, can't speak to that too much, but there's also just so many other flavors out there.
I had a quick question. Do you believe that disbelief has a dispelling effect on other people's spells? Like a person who disbelieves strongly in a thing can actually create a sort of a field around themselves that causes sort of strange happenings to dissipate a little bit. Because that seems to be the...
Yeah, no, I definitely do. To an extent, of course, it sort of depends on, so with the chaos magic perspective, you might be going through what's called belief shifting or paradigm jumping, which is where you are intentionally adopting and discarding beliefs as they suit your magical ritual. And so if you're working, like, let's talk about the models of magic for a second. You have the spirit model of magic, the meta model, the energy model, the psychological model, and the chaos magician may adopt any one of those models at any point, depending on what they're doing. So if you are fully adopting the spirit model, let's say, for a particular ritual, you are getting yourself to believe that spirits objectively exist, regardless of your belief in them, then from that perspective, then the answer would be no, because your belief doesn't really matter too much because you're working with the idea of these objective spirits. But if you're working from the psychological model or the energy model and such, I personally do believe that belief is very potent, and your disbelief in something can dispel what you're doing. I also want to add another caveat here that sometimes we think we believe something, but there is a rift between the conscious mind and the subconscious mind, because you might think consciously that you believe in something when subconsciously you really don't, or vice versa. And so I think we need to work with altered states a lot in ritual for this reason, because when we enter altered states of consciousness, we drop down into our subconscious mind a little bit more and into the spirit world a little bit more. And so we're able to bypass those cognitive filters and really get down to what we actually believe. So if we're working with our belief and trying to manipulate things, we're implanting it directly into the subconscious, and you don't have that friction of what you think consciously you believe versus what you subconsciously believe. I think I just went on a whole, I don't even know what the original question was. I was just kind of rambling, so I don't know.
Sorry, I'll jump in really quick if that's okay, Nick.
I was going to ask if you had something to say.
Yeah, I think what Ivy said was totally correct. Like is correct for every kind of magic. That's not, I don't think that's even limited. Like, yeah, you do drop, we would call it like Rigpa, you drop down into like the fifth state of consciousness, like that kind of, I would call it Diamond Thunder, but people can call it whatever they want. It is that sort of more primordial state, as Ivy said. But it is like, I would say it's Yesodic. Obviously, shout out to our series, Nick, on Kabbalah, but you know, it is. So, but that can be a problem too, as Ivy's saying, because it is the realm of the spirits. It's the ghost worlds. So certain things can arise in that state that aren't necessarily real or not real. I always call it either or not, excuse me, neither nor. I always say, people always ask me, oh, are gods real? I'm like, well, it's real and not real. It's neither nor. never either or. So I don't know if you agree with that, Ivy, but that's often how I sort of frame it myself. So I agree. Everything you said is just that this is like the conventions of like fundamental magic, like exactly what you're talking about, like dropping down into that state, but then you're going to go up what a lot of people would call the will. You're going to push past that kind of Tiferatic or solar consciousness, and you're going to, go all the way, however, wherever your plan is. So.
Yeah, I wanted to add that there was something that you were saying, like kind of like the subconscious and conscious. For me, it just reminded me of when I was doing shadow work. At some point, when I guess maybe I just started really taking I was doing a lot of meditation and just trying, I guess, think on certain things. And at one point, I was just realizing that certain morals and values that I thought I had, I could look in different situations of my life and see how I contradict myself. And I'm like, yo, that is fucking deep. Like, my fucking brain is fucked. I don't know. And honestly, it was not too long after that I started having magical experiences. Sometimes I even wonder if I even fried myself out. Even my own conscience was this makes no sense. Why are we playing this game?
Exactly. There are so many. I actually have an exercise in my book that works with journaling about your subconscious beliefs and helping you to start rewriting those subconscious beliefs. And deconditioning is such a core part of a chaos magic practice, because you really want to shed societal limitations or societal brainwashing, even brainwashing from your childhood. We're really trying to deconstruct and get back to primordial chaos, right? And primordial chaos has no form. It does not have this, the limitations of ego. So deconstruction is really important. So I like that you brought up shadow work, because I think that can be very adjacent to some of the deconditioning practices of chaos magicians.
Yeah, I would even and you know what? It's funny how you even mentioned, being conditioned. I think what even kind of spurred me into getting into all that with the shadow work is I read the Gita, and in my opinion, when he's talking about all those people on the battlefield, I'm in my opinion, I'm taking it as all the voices in his head that have constructed his beliefs and the way he is, and I had to start going back, being not for nothing, I still love my father or whoever, or the guy across the street, our neighbor. But there were certain values that they put into my head that I lived by that I disagree with completely fucking now. And I had to let that shit go. So there was some deep shit, in that book, believe it or not, that scenario is what took me down that whole path, of starting to look at myself and what the fuck is actually making me think the way I think. Because that's all learned behavior, basically.
Well, yeah, belief is so important. And it's like this dance too, because yes, we want to feed our belief into something, but not to the point where it becomes adherence to dogma at the expense of anything else better that could come your way. And so I think that's the fine line too, is that belief in something is okay. Subscribing to something is totally okay. It's when it becomes this rigid adherence where you are no longer tapped into your creativity, your freedom. If something better comes along that's more efficient, if you're so stuck in your ways and you're not even willing to consider new opportunities or a new way of doing something in your occult practice, that is the opposite of what chaos magic preaches. So yeah, no, I agree with that. So deconditioning is really important for that reason.
Awesome. Thank you.
There is a Zen expression of great doubt, great awakening, little doubt, little awakening, no doubt, no awakening, which I think is a great, profound kind of idea towards your experience, Nick. And when we spend enough time inside, we all have that experience. And I love this topic of the individualized pursuit of magic, Ivy, that you're taking on. This idea of applicability over ritualism is very Tai Chi, very Taoist, and it's all about what works for the individual. And I think that's an example of why there's so many different styles and different aspects of Tai Chi, is because it's all about the individual, what works for them. I should have known that you were into Thoth by looking at your book cover. And then Nick, when you mentioned, which will be on my radar now, the 8 essential tips tips for beginner occultists. I wonder if you look at this eightfold symbology as meaningful in any term. And I love the cover of your book, by the way.
Oh, thank you. Can I actually talk about the cover for a second? Because it was by accident, and it was actually kind of a mess.
I was going to ask you about it, actually. That was going to be the next question.
Yeah, no, I haven't had a chance to talk about this yet with anybody, but so Moonbooks Publishing, they're awesome. Usually authors don't get to choose their covers at all. It's all up to the publisher, which is wild because unfortunately some authors get stuck with a really ugly cover and they can't do anything about it. It's just the publishing. But Moonbooks was really great, and they were open to taking my notes as to what I wanted for the cover. So I didn't fully design the cover, but I gave them almost the exact concept that they produced, which I was happy with. But I was looking at the 8-pointed star because the 8-pointed star, the Chaos Star, has kind of become an unofficial symbol for chaos magic, which there's never going to be an official symbol for chaos magic because, again, it rejects dogma. That's never going to be a thing. But it is kind of like the unofficial symbol because, the IoT took it and are incorporating it into their symbolism and so on and so forth. But anyways, for the cover, I wanted the 8-pointed star, to signify chaos magic. And so I was looking on Shutterstock, which is the only option that I had to really be able to find similar images to send to the publisher to give them an idea of what I was looking for. And I found this one that was really beautiful that I was like, wow, this is the most gorgeous 8-pointed star I think I've ever seen. It looks like it's got cool sigils on it. I mean, and I tried to, dig into it a little bit and I was like, I don't think I've seen this before. Anyways, so I sent it to the publisher and I said, hey, can we get something like this on the cover? This would be cool. I showed it to my friends, and my friend is a ceremonial magician, a Solomonic practitioner. And she was like, why do you have the first pentacle of Venus on the cover of your book? And I was like, oh, so that's the first pentacle of Venus. Okay, got it. So, but I actually ended up keeping it because she had mentioned, she was like, you should get that changed. You should change it to something else because the first pentacle of Venus is all about Venusian energies, right? It's like the purest embodiment of Venusian energy. And I actually thought that was kind of cheeky and funny because the chaos magic scene is so dominated by masculinity. And I don't ever really meet female chaos magicians. And so I thought it was cheeky and fun to put Venus right on the cover of my book. And I was like, you know what? Fuck it. Let's go with Venus. Venus is the planetary sphere that I actually work with the most in my own personal planetary magic. So I thought it was kind of a divine sign from Venus that I was on the right track because it's an entity I work with quite often. So I was like, you know what, Venus, let's go. Let's bring in some femininity, and I'm perfectly okay with Venus being on my cover. So it's not actually the 8-pointed star, but it works regardless. Venus rules over so much more than people realize, so I'm happy with it.
And maybe it'll bring some material abundance. Yeah,
that's right. bring it, attracting all the people to the book cover. I have had so many people say, wow, you have such a beautiful book color. It's so attractive. And I was like, oh, that's funny because it's the first pentacle of Venus. She's very attractive. So yeah.
It's interesting though. I know like the 8-pointed star, with Venus, but then if you want to go with the number 8 on the Kabbalistic tree of life, you would get Thoth over there. And then that would go with writing and all that stuff. So, I mean, very, very much fitting for you, actually, I think.
Yeah, I did actually dedicate this book to Thoth. The very first page of my book, it straight up says, this book is dedicated to Thoth. Thank you for everything. Like, that's the very first page. So the whole book is that's awesome, thanks to him. So, yeah.
There was a lot of times when I would do rituals, I would kind of like to take on his god form beforehand. Yeah, I was very much into Thoth for a while. He was a good dude for me. What was I going to ask? I do have some questions. It's kind of questions that sometimes I do ask just, occultists that come on or other authors. I don't think I even mentioned them to you. And they're nothing too deep. It's just I kind of just want to get your idea. When it comes to magic, and I would say specifically first with Aleister Crowley. Now, I don't know how much you're into him. But from what you know, with him or other occultists, and I'm asking this specifically also because like you have a little bit more of academic side in science. Do you think that any of them are ever in their work trying to point to the eyeballs in the brain?
Oh, you were asking me something I know absolutely nothing about. But no, I actually do know a lot about Aleister Crowley. And because he's not considered a grandfather of chaos magic by any means, but his rebellious spirit really kind of set the stage for other occultists to be able to develop what is chaos magic now. So it was kind of like a chain of events, and Crowley definitely played a part in that, though he's not really credited as any sort of founder. But so yeah, I do know of him, and I could definitely speak to him. But as far as the eyeballs and the brain part, absolutely no idea. But I know that's something that you might be a little bit more educated in. So now I kind of want to hear what you have to say about it.
Yeah, well, no, I do think so. Yeah. And it's just a lot of times whenever I've asked other people on here, people even associated with like the OTO or even Thelema, sometimes I'll just ask them. I mean, I don't think I've really gotten. Well, there was one person after the show kind of confirmed certain things that I thought, but for the most part, everybody pretty much says no. So I was just wondering if your opinion. It sounds crazy, I know it might, but I do think, like, I'm just gonna put it out there. I'm not gonna get into it too much. I think his Knox formula is all about the eyeball. That's my opinion. The eyeball and the pineal gland. So, but yeah, I just wanted to ask you that. Another question that sometimes I do ask people. Yeah, I'm assuming you meditate, because you did talk about that. That was another thing I loved about your 8, lessons or your 8 points or whatever. It was the first thing you mentioned. I was like, yes, because I think it's very important. I even think, like, not to bring his name up again, but I think even David Schumacher in Living Thelema, or at some point when he mentions like things that you should do, I think meditation is the first thing. He's like, it doesn't sound glorious or exciting, but you're gonna have to meditate. When you meditate, have you ever seen it's almost like a pin dot or a blazing star or an eclipse?
Oh, geez. Well, if you ask me about meditation, I could talk for 30 minutes to 2 hours about why it's important and all of these things. I'm really passionate about it. I was actually a Zen Buddhist a strict Zen Buddhist for about 5 years before kind of switching my path to chaos magic afterwards. And so meditation was a huge part of my spiritual practice. And it was just a very ascetic approach. For sure. But no, I can't say. Usually my meditations now, I will say I usually enter a trance in order to, I'm also a seer. So that's something that has been part of my life for a really long time. So in order to gain visions or insight that is divinely inspired, or to communicate with spirits. But I can't say that I have experienced the eclipse that you're talking about specifically. But please elaborate, because what do you mean by that?
It's I mean, I could probably send you like one of the shows where I went into it more, but like there's a whatever I do claim of Across the Abyss, and it's just an ongoing scenario of scenes that I see every time it happens. And it starts off as this white pin dot that, like, literally with my eyes closed, it feels like there's actual depth in my head as I view this thing. And at some point, doing whatever I'm doing as I'm meditating, it comes closer and turns into an eclipse, and then certain things happen after that, and if I let it go, I blast off. So I was just asking, that's just another question I'll ask people if they ever seen an eclipse.
Wow. No, that's really interesting. I always wonder the things that we see in meditation, if they are conjured specifically for how we would personally interpret them. Like, it may be an eclipse for you, but it might be something else for someone else.
Yes.
But then we also have people that experience similar things, but that could be also similar brain wiring at play. But yeah, I can't say that I have experienced that, but I think that's really interesting. And I'm sure that it's showing up for you in the exact way that it needs to.
Well, thank you. I hope so. Yeah. Yeah, it was just like a lot of times I try to ask people about the Crowley thing and the eclipse. I just throw that out there. I know in your book, what's funny, you were talking about, there was something else you just mentioned before. What else did you say that you're into as well?
A million things. No, Zen Buddhism, I think, was the last thing that I mentioned. What else am I into? Psychology, science.
No, I feel like there was something like you contacting spirits or something like that. Was it like that to an extent?
Oh, yeah. During meditative states, yeah.
Yeah. That was actually something I was like, damn, I could get her on that for a whole episode.
Oh my God, yes, we could talk about that.
Yeah, but unfortunately, it is your book that I did want to try to promote on here. You kind of split that up into like 2 sections, correctly, like theory and then praxis. What was the reason? Like, can you explain to the listeners what's the reasoning for you doing that?
Yeah, so my book is split up into two parts. It first starts with theory. I think it's the first 4 chapters that are part of theory, and then the last 3, because it's 7 chapters in total. I hope I'm not forgetting a chapter in my own book, are praxis. But I think any occultist, first of all, from any tradition, needs to have a good balance between theory and praxis. I see so many people that are leaning heavy one way or another, where we have people that are heavy into theory, but then, we potentially have the chance for armchair magicians who are never actually doing the work and never having any sort of divine revelations themselves. And so they get into this analysis paralysis where all they're doing is reading books, but they're never actually doing the work. And then we have people that are doing practice, which is great, and they're developing their own gnosis, but they may not understand like the historical aspects of what they're doing, or they're not bringing in the academia that really helps support and improve their skills of whatever it is that they're doing. So I think any occultist of any tradition needs a good balance of both theory and praxis. The theory part specifically really goes over chaos magic theory before we even get into sigils, hypersigils, servitors, pop culture magic and invocation and all of those things. It's good to understand what chaos magic theory even is, because chaos magic really is a perspective about how magic works. My book isn't going to tell you what to do, because that's not what chaos magic is about. I'm not going to sit here and go, okay, you must do this. This is step 1 and 2. Fuck that. Throw that out the window. The chaos magic theory really relates to using your belief as a tool, entering a Gnostic state prior to ritual, and conversations about objective versus subjective reality, and deconditioning your mind, like all the things that we've been talking about in this conversation so far. And then once you understand the theory part, go play. Go do a crazy invocation and bring a god into your body. I know that's probably really irresponsible for me to say, but fuck around and find out, be possessed by a demon. I don't care. Go experiment and do all the things your heart desires. But I did want to bring in play, so yeah.
It's very much it's very much how I kind of like took on ceremonial magic. I was like, yeah, just fuck around and find out, I guess.
Yeah.
It's kind of like, to keep it real, even with the ceremonial magician, or I guess even chaos magician, very much like Headless has said it to me before. He's like, a regular person, like you could have this wall of all these buttons, and it'll tell you on the label what it does. A normal person will just take that for what it says. A magician's going to be like, I have to hit every one of these to see if it actually fucking does that. I have to know from experience.
Yep. And then they're going to put on a llama suit while they do it, and invoke Pikachu and flying spaghetti monster. I don't know, because it's all about fun and creativity and figuring out what works. So who cares?
Yeah.
So I've been listening to this podcast about these children that have developed a sort of blindfold sight. Right. And so what they're doing is they're teaching these children to see while blindfolded. And they've done this with blind children. And there's some sort of window that opens up for them if they're able to maintain sort of like a childlike innocence of mind. Right. So it's a lot easier for children to get out of that, like you were saying, the conditioned state, and then start to accept that maybe they're actually seeing without it. But the way that they have to do it is they have to cheat the mind originally by having the blindfolds with little openings so that light gets in, so that they think to themselves, well, I'm actually cheating. I'm cheating to see this figure, even though it's, actually sealed up. So the mind has to be tricked into believing that it can see under a blindfold for it to actually work. So there's a really interesting angle about play there too, because if you're not willing to play with it, if you get frustrated, if you have an emotional reaction and not being able to do it, there's no way that you'll ever be able to teach yourself to see without your eyes. It's kind of interesting.
That is so interesting. And that kind of reminds me of all the cognitive biases we have. So as adults, we kind of become more rigid and solidified in what we think and what we believe, and our ego and all of our thoughts about how the world works and so on and so forth. And the whole goal is to kind of shed that, right? And to go back to the primordial chaos. But if we think about just how the brain works in general, if I'm examining my environment right now, we have all of these cues that are coming in, like the lights from my computer and the sound of my dog being an asshole outside, whatever, like all these different things are coming in from my environment. And my brain is going to pass that through a reality threshold. And a reality threshold really decides what we see and what we don't see. It needs to match or pass this reality threshold of our preconceived notions of how reality works. So if we have these this input coming in from our external environment and it does not match our preconceived notions of what reality is, our brain discards it and we don't see it. So for example, a spirit, let's say let's just for the sake of it say a spirit is floating in my room right now. I am in a conscious state where my brain is constantly filtering things. I'm not even going to see that spirit because it doesn't match what I would perceive normal reality to be. And so that is why we have to drop down into these altered states and rituals so we can bypass the conscious mind. But what you were saying about the children and having to blindfold yourselves, yeah, you kind of have to trick your brain because your conscious mind has those filtering mechanisms that we need to bypass. And then also just children in general. I think that's such an interesting concept because they don't have that rigidity that adults have yet. And so their brains are just so freeform and they can really experiment and do incredible things. There's always like that stereotype, right, where it's like the creepy child talking to spirits that nobody else can see. And you're like, all right, little kid, you're freaking me out. I don't really like that. They can see stuff we can't. So yeah, I don't know. I'm monologuing, but that's really cool.
I was thinking too, that makes me think of panpsychism, like electrons all having consciousness and like sending information to each other. Like, and it makes me think of almost like it seems like these electrical fields in our bodies are almost like turned on or off. And I think for kids, it's almost like they're fully open, fully on. And maybe as you get older, you like learn to kind of shut off different parts of yourself for whatever reason. And so it's like almost to also kind of align your conscious with your subconscious. Like, I think you really have to have a lot of those channels open to be able to do that properly. And I was just thinking about that, and like some alignment is required for that.
100%. I would agree with everything you said.
I think it should be called nascent alignment, right? So it's that naive state where nobody's ever told you can't do it before. So why can't you do it? You know, it's that nascent alignment. I think that's a good way of putting it.
There's an important point that Ivy keeps bringing up. I would use obviously slightly different language to describe it, but she's talking about the same thing. And we call it disaggregation, or you can call it, as I like to say on Twitter, breaking klipas. Same thing. So it's you want to break the preconceptual like models of reality, but you don't want to be fixed in the antithesis either. So this is something like Headless said, like, can disbelief sort of negate, but negation's not as powerful a force. It just isn't. Belief is much more, it's a polarity unto itself almost. Belief is not the antithesis of belief. Disbelief, I mean. So, but yeah, I agree. I agree with everything that Eros and Ivy said. It's so important to, like, if you want to call it shadow work, you can call it shadow work. But I think that there's even something that about shadow work, like people can get kind of stuck down there, stuck in the tunnels of set, some people call it. Oh, yeah. And like they'll talk about like depression or like all these things. And like, yeah, those are like normal human experiences, normal human consciousness. Everybody, goes through their thing. But I think like really, if you want to truly break them or truly disaggregate, you have to kind of also let like the negative go. The negative sort of forces as well. It can't just be like I liked what Ivy said at the beginning. It's like I'm not a left-hand path practitioner. Yeah, I hear you, Ivy. I counter this a lot myself. So it's hard because you want to bring things into balance, into synthesis, but also into rectification.
Definitely. I just wanted to comment really quick on the left-hand path, right-hand path dichotomy. I really try to embody a middle path, and I actually think that a middle path is a healthy, holistic way to go about it. Just my personal opinion. People can do whatever they want, but I don't even use those terms anymore. I always wonder, is that kind of like an outdated perspective? And we're kind of using that terminology, right? Because we don't really have better words to use. But I do wonder if sometimes it is more of an outdated perspective with right-hand path versus left-hand path. Because I find that most of us are kind of in the middle. Even people that identify as left-hand path, when you look at their practices, they kind of embody a little bit of both. both. So I don't even know if the distinction's necessary anymore. Maybe that's a hot take. I don't know if that's controversial or not.
I agree.
No, I agree with that
I
too.
co-sign that 100% agree. Like, that's
Okay,
why
good.
I called it the gray lodge, because it's like, yeah, it's bringing in both. It's bringing in both ideas, but you're not like going to extremes. You're just looking at it. Maybe you call it Nargo-Junian, or maybe you call it non-dual, or whatever you want to call it, Gnostic. And you kind of take it as ideas. You don't say, oh, I must go do this just because Picatrix says this. Like, no, you're taking it as conceptual ideas. Maybe you'll work in some sigil things, or maybe you'll even try and recreate the seal. But, it has to be pragmatic. It has to be like about life, because we are alive and we're here. It can't be like the negation of that. I think that's what my personal critique of the left-hand path would be, is like, not all of it. Some of it's very life positive, but a lot of it can be very nihilistic as well. And I think like Buddhism is very life positive. I know people will say, maybe fight me, but I think of it as very life affirming. Like, we have this life to do what we choose and to, like, practice Dharma or practice magic. And yeah, we should do that, I think.
I was going to say, too, about the shadow work and getting caught up in the shadow work. I mean, shadow work is one thing, but if you're not training your subconscious, like, you're not going to actually be changing anything within yourself.
That's a good point.
I would agree with that. Definitely don't get me started on shadow work, because I am such a snob when it comes to how people talk about shadow work. Don't even get me going down that.
You know what? One thing I do want to say, and maybe this is where Ivy will agree with too. I feel like a lot of people, when they're talking about they're doing shadow work, it's like, no, you're just running with your demons right now. Like,
I mean, sure, yeah.
yeah, like, stop. Like, you've been dealing with the same thing for 6 months. You're not dealing. You're enjoying it now. Like,
Yeah, that's one of the problems.
yeah. But did anybody else have any other questions or anything? No, Jen.
I mean, I do.
Go for it, Arrows. Ask,
Okay.
please.
So Thoth, I mean, I think that's just really interesting, because I don't ever associate Thoth with chaos. I associate him with order, kind of, or like a balance of the chaos and order. And so I was wondering, like, how do you relate to Thoth? How does Thoth relate to your practice? I know that's kind of personal, but whatever you will share about that.
Yeah, I love this question, actually. That's such a good question. I can only talk a little bit about it because it's part of my spiritual contract with him that I am not able to speak about our relationship to a certain level of detail for a specific period of time. I'm still in the 5-year contract. I think it's year 3 with him. So we have a contract where I want to make sure that when I speak about something publicly, I want to make this sounds so terrible. I want to make sure I know what I'm talking about. And I don't want to start working with Thoth in the first 5 years and try to assert myself as some sort of authority figure on how to work with Thoth or who Thoth is and so on and so forth. I just don't like that. Other people can do that if they want to, but if I'm going to talk about something with authority, I want to make sure I know what I'm talking about. So for the first 5 years of working with him, it is part of our contract that I don't really share the ins and outs. But I will say that from the chaos magic perspective, it's all about, it goes back to belief, right? So it doesn't really matter whether Thoth is an actual god or if he's an egregore or a figment of my imagination and just a psychological archetype. If I am working with him from the perspective that my belief in him makes him real and makes that and makes change in my reality, that's what matters at the end of the day. So in working with him, I find that a lot of chaos magicians actually work with various deities. It's just that the way that they work with them is from a different perspective, because a non-chaos magician might work with Thoth or Hecate or whatever god they're working with and might actually believe that that god is objectively real, regardless of their belief in them. They would believe that that god lives in some sort of upper realm, lower world, shadow world, so on and so forth. Whereas the chaot is that deity is dependent on the chaot's belief in them. So I don't really find any, there's no friction really in working with his dogma, because I'm not succumbing to his dogma, if that makes sense. So I still work with Thoth in more traditional means, and I really work with him for the purpose of writing, because he is kind of a mystical being that governs over writing and scripture and things of that nature. And just as a writer myself, I write nonfiction and fiction. I don't ever actually talk about that on any of my channels, but I do write other stuff outside of the occult. So he is very much kind of like a muse of inspiration, and I give offerings to him. And in an exchange, he gives me inspiration and we write together. So yeah, it's actually a really, really fun relationship to have with him. It just takes a lot of, I would say, discipline, because Thoth, the entity that I've been working with, Thoth very much likes asceticism and discipline. That is one thing that I noticed working with this entity versus, and I use the word entity because I find it's a lot more inclusive than saying God, because then we go back to the idea of, is it a God or not? Who knows? I don't care. So this entity that I'm working with does tend to be a lot more disciplined and rigorous than any other entity I've ever worked with. And I kind of like that. I like when somebody's slapping my wrist a little bit and is like, okay, get going. We need to be disciplined. I really enjoy that type of energy as like a very type A personality. So yeah, I don't know. I haven't really had any friction with it. It's been a really, really fun experience.
Well, I was going to bring up William S. Burroughs and his cut-up method. That's sort of like a staple of left-hand path chaos magic. And that's working directly with these words that you're scrambling up. And then, it almost like pisses off Thoth so much, he's got to interact with you with the words that he's bringing order to. So in some sense, it's almost like a aggravation that you're trying to, produce something of inspiration from that aggravation.
Yeah, I definitely don't take that approach, but that is an approach that people can take, I guess.
Provocation is an excellent Kabbalistic tool. I'll just say that.
I know with
very powerful.
I used to use Thoth a lot of Tahuti. Even used to have a statue for him and everything. I used to look at him, a lot like I guess like being there, kind of like the chaos as well as in form, and the reasoning for me to even originally start looking at it like that is that he's even known from being there at the beginning to witness everything come to be. He was there to categorize everything. So it's like, was he the chaos already? Watching it, having an experience, and everything start becoming, whatever it is. I don't know. So it's like, in some way, it does. His story does even kind of tell you he's been there since the beginning.
Yeah, his story is really, really interesting. He has been there from the absolute beginning. I know some people would argue that maybe some other goddesses are more ancient than him, of course. But yeah, to see his development, and then we have like the conversion of the Greeks and the Egyptians coming together and merging him with Hermes, and then we have, Hermeticism and all this stuff. His lore is really, really interesting, and that's why I always bring up the concept of egregores. Are we actually working with the original ancient Egyptian deity, or are we working with something different now, especially with occultism, because now we have brought him into so many organizations, so many occult rituals, and has this god morphed over time because of our beliefs in this god changing and us feeding our magical energy into it. So again, that's why I go back to, do we call it an entity or a god? I don't know, and it doesn't matter.
That was a really good point. About, is it like even the same thing anymore? Interesting.
Well, it's like the Akashic energy field, it's like
I
all
think
the
he very much is.
Go ahead, Ethan.
I was going to say just that Thoth embodies the principles over rules and rituals. He's all about the principles, and do what you will with those principles, not necessarily dogmatic ideas.
I think the scribes might disagree that worked with him forever ago, but also that was a completely different time and a completely different, different reality that we're living in nowadays.
You ever see that show, American Gods?
No, I have not. I've heard amazing things about it.
Yeah, I loved Thoth in that movie, in that show.
Well, I actually think I could synthesize what Ethan is saying and what Ivy is saying, and I think I can even make an argument as to why. And adding in a little what Nick said, because like Thoth is very Hode-like, if we're going to use Kabbalah, like it's like the 8.
Yeah.
And so, right? So, yeah, exactly like what Nick said. He's chaos and in form. He is the watcher. He is the witness. And maybe that's his consciousness as well. Maybe that's our consciousness, because Hode is linked to the Bene Elohim, the sons and daughters of man. It's very ionic, just saying. But also, I think, I think he's a god of syntax. And this is just my personal, I'm not a pagan. I'm not like, all that. But I think he's the god of word order, ritual word order. Because this is something we have in Tantra. Like we have the idea of ritual syntax, ritual grammars. And so I think that Ethan's right that he can be a god of like how to remix it into a coherent, cogent way. But he isn't necessarily like it's still within a certain set of rules, but maybe it appears as opposite or appears as backwards. So, but it's still adhering to a certain set of rules, maybe just the other polarity of it. I don't know. That's just an idea I had.
Well, doesn't he order chaos? So I guess it's just kind of interesting. Like that would kind of fit perfectly with chaos magic, because that's what, in a way, you're doing, right? You're ordering chaos. You're ordering that primordial and into a form.
That's actually the most beautiful way to say that. Thank you for saying it that way. No, it's so true, because that's what the chaos magician does. You take primordial chaos and you manipulate your reality to whatever you want it to be. So yeah, and you create order from that.
It's pretty well damn said. Very nice.
Right. A lot of podcasters think that chaos magic is the goal is to produce more chaos in the world. And it's like, really? I mean, couldn't you look into it a little bit more and try to figure out what you're actually doing?
Can I just go off on that for a second?
Yeah, go for it.
It's one of the most annoying things ever. One of the biggest misconceptions about chaos magic is that it's so chaotic and we're just trying to create chaos and discord and whatever. Some people might, but also every occultist there's so many different traditions where there's always going to be those people that are trying to cause chaos and strife. Okay, so it is not intrinsically chaos magic. Chaos magic is about working with primordial chaos. And I think people get tripped up because of the word chaos in chaos magic, and they think it just means, causing strife and chaos in the world. And that really drives me crazy, especially because there's this element of record keeping and discipline that comes into a chaos magic practice, especially if you are performing belief shifting, also known as paradigm jumping, and you're doing invocations, and you really should be keeping a record and you should be disciplined in your practice. So it's actually not disorganized at all. Most of the chaos magicians that I know are some of the most disciplined occultists that I've met, and also the most well-versed occultists that I've met, because they've tried a bunch of different things. They've experimented, they've kept their records. And so to say that chaos magic is just disorganized is honestly an insult, and it really irritates me. So yeah, it's one of the biggest misconceptions. I can't stand it.
Well, when it comes to the occult, there's tons of misconceptions. So.
Yeah, for sure.
That's something.
I think this. Sorry.
Go ahead. No, go.
I just want to say, I think that's what Ivy was speaking to about Discordianism, and how Discordianism is much more of an ethos, I would say. It's not necessarily like, oh, yeah, we're going to pray to Eris. Like, obviously, we talked about Austin Osman Spare and his use of sigils as words, like, because all of his sigils have poems, and like I'm very fond of this as well, as like someone who like dabbles in writing, and I'm sure Ivy is as well. Like, his stuff is, for me, it's the most interesting because he incorporates both image and word, which I think is really powerful. But no, I think, I'm sorry, I totally forgot what I was saying, but no, Discordianism. So I think, yeah, it's an ethos. It's not necessarily like, yeah, there are people who are like, we're going to pray to Eris and, like, treat her like it's a real entity and like that. Yeah, sure. Okay. But it's also just like, we're going to cause chaos. We're going to, deconstruct everything. We're going to be the rebels against everything. And as Ivy's saying, like, we have to be pragmatic. It's 2025. Like, it's not about destroy the world time. It's about like, we have to make of this world like what we can, I think, is much more of a pragmatic approach to magic and like a pragmatic approach to life.
Pragmagic. I like that.
There we go. Start teaching that in your Grey Lodge. If you guys don't mind, only because unfortunately we do have I have another show at 6:00. I will probably wrap it up, Ivy. I mean, unfortunately, we could probably go on for hours about certain things, and would love to get you on again in the future. I thought this was an amazing talk with you. Yeah, you really fit right in with us. I had a blast having you on. It was better than I expected. Put it that way. And before we let you tell everybody where they can find all your stuff and everything, I'll have the other people on the show, the rejects, remind everybody where they can find their work. And Eros, first up, let everybody know where they can find all your stuff, please.
You can find my stuff on YouTube at ArrowsUp and on Twitter at Arrows to Ethos. Check it out.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Yes, definitely go check out our stuff, especially if you're into Neoplatonism. My man, Jin. What is going on, Ninja?
Thank you so much, boss, and thank you to the panel, and thank you especially to Ivy, but also to Eros, who's it's the first time I've worked with you, so thank you so much. It was really a pleasure. So you can find me at Wukong Reborn, WUKONG Reborn, on Twitter X, and IG at Threshold Saints, as well as Twitter for the show account. And I'll have 2 episodes dropping this week, probably 3 to be honest, but because I'm a little behind, but I'll try and get that. And then you can also follow us at the Grey Lodge YouTube channel, like and subscribe. And I really, this was like incredible. Thank you so much, Ivy, and thank you, Nick, for setting it up.
Oh, of course. Thank you for joining it. I was glad you made it. And my man, Ethan Indigo. What is going on, sir? How are you?
That was awesome, Nick. Thank you for putting this together. Ivy, thank you for all the insights and points of inspiration. And I think I'm a chaos magician officially after all of that.
Yes.
I'm easy to find on the internets, and I always appreciate talking with you guys. And yeah, please, everyone, please communicate with me if they feel so inclined to. Again, appreciate you. Thank you so much, Ivy.
Thank you for making it, Ethan. And Headless Giant, what is going on, sir?
How you doing? You can find me doing alchemy on Mondays with Eros. You can find me doing the trialogues on Sundays with Ethan. You can find me doing the magical mailbag on Thursdays with Nick. So check it out, Headless Giant, anywhere good stuff is at. So thank you.
Well, thank you, sir. And finally, back to you, Ivy. Again, I had a blast. It was great. There were certain things that we talked about that was just like brought back memories. It's like, wow, I haven't talked about this shit since I was like heavily practicing. So it was like, memory lane for me too as well. Thank you so much. Again, I really think this was an awesome episode. I'm really happy to put this out. Please let everybody know where they can find all your stuff.
Sure. Well, I just have to say thank you all so much for being so nice. I usually don't go on podcasts because it gives me an insane amount of anxiety. So I appreciate you all being so nice. I feel like this conversation flowed really effortlessly, and I just appreciate you all a lot. I'm very much an introvert, so thank you for being kind to me. Also, I'm Ivy The Occultist on YouTube and Instagram. So you can either type in Ivy The Occultist or Ivy Corvus, and that's it. That's me.
Awesome. Again, thank you so much for coming on, and definitely go check out her stuff again. If you're interested in, the occult and whatever magic, again, listening to that 8, what is it again, the exact name for them? That 8 lessons or what, 8 points?
Oh, I don't even know. It's pinned on, if you go to the homepage of my YouTube channel, it should be one of the very first videos that are pinned. It's like top tips for occultists or something.
8 essential tips for beginner occultists. Is that it?
Yes.
That's the one. I made that so long ago, and I actually hate that video, but I'm glad you love it.
Yo, when I heard you say meditation and brainwaves, I was like, yo, did she just say brainwaves? I was like, fuck yeah.
No, but I think I stand by
awesome.
What I said. I stand by it. It was just, anyway. It was just filmed a long time ago, and I don't like how I look in it and whatever. Anyways,
right,
so.
All right, yeah, definitely go check it out. But again, thank you so much for coming on. And everybody who came on, too, I really appreciate all you rejects for jumping on. This was a really, really fun episode. I'm glad it happened, and hopefully we'll get to do it again one day in the future. And that is it. Later.